This road is fraught with danger. The 95D in the south of Mexico is full of twists and turns and would test the nerves of any driver. One moment's inattention on these hairpin bends could be fatal. It's 7:30 in the morning at the Cuernavaca Red Cross Station, a town around 90 kilometers from Mexico City, the country's capital. Emergency responders José Luis Vargas and Manuel Romero need to respond to a serious accident.
Están reportando un vehículo que se fue a una barranca con dos personas. Fueron a una barranca como 600 metros.
The accident happened in a remote area 20 kilometers from Cuernavaca. The Red Cross emergency responders are not the first to arrive. There are already police and firefighters on the scene.
¿El vehículo está de este lado? ¿Este es equipo de extracción vehicular?
No hemos hecho contacto porque no hay mucho que indicaron que eran dos femeninas con ausencia de signos vitales.
Manuel has only just arrived. There is no hope that the two victims can be rescued alive. Below lie the bodies of a mother and her daughter. Mariana on the left was 21 years old, and beside her, her mother Angeles, a 42-year-old nurse. The tragedy unfolded at the exit of a turn on a stretch of road without any safety railing. One reckless maneuver by the driver and the vehicle tumbled into the ravine and rolled over and over for at least 200 meters, and then finally came to a stop wrapped around this tree. The recovery operation is the top priority now.
La extracción del primer cuerpo.
A rescuer in a sturdy harness rappels down under the watchful eyes of about 15 relatives of the victims, who are in shock. Below, police and firefighters help to put the first victim onto the stretcher, which now weighs 60 kilos. The two victims' bodies are hoisted out of the ravine using sheer human strength. Two more lives taken by Route 95D. 335 people died on this road in 2021. It has a reputation as one of the most dangerous roads in this country, where driving is often perilous. Located south of the USA with a population of nearly 130 million, Mexico is one of the worst countries in the world for road safety. It ranks 7th highest in the world for deaths from road traffic accidents. 14,000 people die on the roads every year. One road in this country has a particularly sinister reputation, the 95D, called the Autopista del Sol. It is 367 kilometers long and links the capital, Mexico City, to the world-famous beach resort of Acapulco. The danger on this road comes from a unique feature, which paradoxically attracts thousands of drivers.
Igual nada más fui a pagar y obtuve mi licencia, no hice ningún tipo de examen.
Unbelievable as it may seem, in the states and Mexico that are traversed by the 95D, it is possible to legally buy a driving license. As a result, many drivers lack basic skills, and they often engage in speeding and drunk driving, risking their own lives as well as those of others on the road. But on the Autopista del Sol, there is another danger. It runs through the state of Guerrero, an area blighted by drug trafficking and the deadly war between rival cartels. And some of the drivers on the 95D become collateral damage in the drug war. A kidnapping in the outskirts of Acapulco. Sometimes tourists are robbed, or they narrowly escape stray bullets. Criminal gangs have established a reign of terror. The military police deploy all their resources to fight this plague of violence, with numerous arrests and seizures of illegal drugs. So for those who take the Autopista del Sol, it can be something of a minefield. And during the rainy season between May and September, there is yet another source of danger. Poor road maintenance and cataclysmic weather combine to create a spectacular local phenomenon. As the road surface collapses, holes appear, several meters in size, and they swallow up vehicles on the road.
Los que están sobre los vehículos, nada.
For several months, we followed the police who are tasked with safeguarding motorists on the 95D. We saw the work of the Red Cross teams who strive to save lives day and night, as well as the speed-crazy bikers of Mexico who reach up to 300 kilometers an hour. We are in Mexico to reveal its deadliest road, the Autopista del Sol. On the 95D, the biggest danger comes from the drivers who ignore speed limits and cause chaos. In 2021, careless driving led to over 800 serious injuries on the Autopista del Sol. The police of the Guardia Nacional are leading the fight against speeding. This afternoon, on the outskirts of Chilpancingo, a town 120 kilometers to the north of Acapulco, the operation is under the command of Commander Luis Francisco Luna, a police officer with over 20 years of service. They lie in wait just outside the town, and he checks the speed of every passing car with a handheld radar.
101, pick up.
He sends every reading immediately to his men. They are in 3 groups, each a few hundred meters apart. The team are ready to spring into action on the commander's orders.
El límite de velocidad en esta carretera al ser el 110. Yo puedo exceder 1 kilómetro o 100 kilómetros, la infracción es
At first glance, the Guardia Nacional might look like hardliners.
Vehículo gris, atento. 130, 130, sea 30, deténlo. Cuidado, cuidado, puede provocar un accidente que lo vayan.
200 meters down the road, the grey car has been stopped by Agent Vasquez. According to Mexican law, a driver who is caught doing 130 kilometers per hour could be subject to a fine of up to 9,900 pesos or 440 euros, nearly 3 times the minimum wage in this area. And they can lose 3 of the 10 points initially issued on their driving license. However, this driver is convinced that he hasn't broken the law, and he seems remarkably sure of himself.
70 o 60 kilómetros por hora. Sí, vengo despacio porque traigo carga, si no puedo venir rápido.
One thing's for sure, the huge quantity of products in the back of the vehicle present a clear danger. Considering his excessive speed, if just one object fell from the back, it could cause a serious accident. But despite this, the man doesn't seem to have the slightest awareness of what he has done, and there is a good explanation for his lack of concern.
Yo la obtuve igual, nada más fui a pagar y obtuve mi licencia. No hice ningún tipo de examen. Nada más vas, pagas tu licencia y te la dan. Vas a una oficina del gobierno, te toman la foto y ya, está tu licencia.
As surreal as it may seem, on this point the driver is correct and within the law. In most states in Mexico, since 2003, it is possible to buy driving licenses for 41 euros apiece. The only proviso is that they must be renewed every 3 years. And if a driver loses all 10 points on his license, they just need to wait for 3 years before they can buy another, no question asked. This is unique in the world. Officially, the decision was taken due to corruption amongst driver examiners, but the result is that there are no exams, not even theory tests. So people can drive without knowing the rules of the road. And it gets even more surprising when we see how lenient Agent Vasquez is with the driver.
Es permanente, sí, es permanente.
Puede continuar con sus instrucciones, la recomendación de que no vaya en exceso de velocidad, por favor.
Sí, no, de hecho, allá adelante nos pusieron el radar. Hasta luego.
Even though the driver was over 20 kilometers per hour over the speed limit, he doesn't get a speeding ticket or even a stern warning. And the policeman feels that this is just as it should be.
Muy cooperativa, pues se le da la facilidad, se le apoya al ciudadano.
To avoid a fine here, you just need to have your papers in order and to behave properly towards the police. Never mind what speed you were driving. It seems unlikely that these speed checks will discourage anyone who wants to drive far too fast. So the Guardia Nacional has come up with another idea to rein them in. And it is a little unusual.
2 de 1, iniciando movimiento.
Once again, Commander Luna is in command.
Vehículo 2 de 1, vete colocando. Alcánzame, por favor.
The code name for this well-choreographed formation is Operation Cartel.
Venimos 2 unidades, nos emparejamos y vamos al límite de velocidad permitido, que en esta pista es de 110, y vamos reduciendo de 100, 90, 80 y mantenemos esa velocidad en un tramo aproximadamente de 20 kilómetros. ¿Qué provocamos con los vehículos que vienen a retaguardia de nosotros? Una, que no rebasen y excedan el límite de velocidad, y 2, que vayan manteniendo esa velocidad.
They do this twice a day.
Bien, mantenemos. Ahí vamos 80, mantenemos.
It looks a lot like protests seen elsewhere around the world, where farmers or truckers sometimes deliberately slow down road traffic to express their dissatisfaction.
Un estimado que fueron unos 10 vehículos aproximadamente, o 12.
It's impossible for any cars to pass them or to increase their speed. Motorists are forced to be patient.
Otro de las maneras o de los inconvenientes que se puede tener es que el usuario se moleste. Sin embargo, no
sabe el usuario que es por su bien, sabe que es por hacer un bien y evitar accidentes.
63 people were killed in road traffic accidents on the Autopista del Sol in 2021. This 120-kilometer stretch of road which links Chilpancingo to Acapulco. 80% of these accidents were directly caused by speeding. Operation Cartel is nearly finished. While the effectiveness of this tactic is still being debated in Mexico, one thing is certain. Since it was first brought in January 2022, the number of accidents on this section of the Autopista del Sol has decreased by 10% compared to the same period in 2021. But there are still daily tragedies on the 95D, and speed is far from being the only culprit. It's only just 7 in the evening and darkness is falling on the Autopista del Sol. At this time every weekend there is a festive atmosphere in the big towns which are linked by the 95D. This Saturday evening in Mexico City, the capital, party animals are drinking to the sound of Latin music. Tequila, local beers and cocktails. The alcohol is flowing freely. Many people don't hesitate to get behind the wheel late at night when they're drunk, unaware of the danger. This risky behavior is very common in Mexico, often with tragic consequences. In 2021, nearly 5,400 people lost their lives in accidents caused by motorists under the influence of alcohol, like here in 2017 on the outskirts of Mexico City. This surveillance footage shows a motorist driving at 184 kilometers per hour on the 95D with a blood alcohol level of 0.4%, which is equivalent to 15 glasses of wine. The man eventually loses control of his vehicle and ends his run against this electricity pole.
Nos informamos de un impresionante accidente automovilístico que ocurrió en el Paseo de la Reforma aquí en la Ciudad de México.
The accident had a terrible toll. 4 of the 5 passengers died instantly. In December 2019, at the exit to Cuernavaca, a grilled corn vendor who was pushing his cart was hit head-on by a vehicle traveling at nearly 200 kilometers an hour. Once again, the driver was drunk. He had consumed 10 beers. The victim stood no chance. So, in the face of this scourge, the authorities are increasing checks.
All fire stations with an announcement.
In and around Mexico City this Saturday evening, an extraordinary operation is brought to bear on partygoers. 200 police officers from the Highway Brigade have been stationed across 23 roadblocks. The largest checkpoint is located precisely at the beginning of the 95D. Anyone who wants to take the Autopista del Sol has to pass through this point. Captain Santiago Machuca is in charge of the operation. He and his men have one objective: to stop drivers who are above the legal alcohol limit, drivers who might cause an accident.
Buenos días, amigo. Mi nombre es Víctor Hugo y me encuentro comisionado en el programa Conducir sin Alcohol.
The maximum limit here is 0.4 milligrams per liter of exhaled air, which is equivalent to 2 beers. Here, even the slightest excess is automatically penalized with a loss of 6 points from the driving license, although there is still no risk of immediate suspension.
Buenos días. ¿Sería usted tan amable de regalarme un soplido a distancia sin cubrebocas? Nuevamente.
The first few drivers who are checked have done nothing wrong, but soon Captain Machuca's colleagues warn him of a man driving suspiciously. He's the owner of this grey pickup truck. This time the motorist must leave his vehicle to submit to an enhanced check. He has to blow into this tube, which is connected to an electronic breathalyzer. This device is 5 times more accurate than the portable one, but it only works if the subject blows correctly. And clearly that's too difficult for the driver. The man attempts 4 times before he finally manages it.
Aquí está tu resultado, 0.87, eso quiere decir que eres infractor al reglamento de tránsito, acabas de rebasar el límite permitido.
The results are definitive. It's more than double the permitted limit. The driver has consumed at least 4 alcoholic drinks. The driver is arrested on the spot. He will appear before a judge later in the evening. The penalty for drunk driving is up to 3 days in jail and a fine of 1,200 euros. 6 points will be automatically deducted from his driving license. His car will be immediately confiscated in accordance with the law in Mexico.
No, que no puede ya designar el vehículo por ningún familiar o acompañante. Tiene usted que cumplir su sanción forzosamente en el centro de sanciones administrativas para poder liberar su vehículo.
His wife seems to be taking this situation very badly.
No, es que lo que pasa que yo quiero saber por qué nos llevan, si no nos tomamos como 4 cervezas.
Así es, pero están rebasando el límite permitido, que es 0.40 su acompañante. Si no lo hubiera rebasado, podría circular sin ningún problema, pero en este momento lo está rebasando. Pues
bueno, déjame que le digo a mi esposo claro de que ya sí. Se va a ir después. Para que la verga, que te van a llevar, dice. Y leg shoot, pero no, me van a entregar sus cosas. ¿Qué hago?
The young woman, who also seems to be intoxicated, is absolutely furious.
La policía de aquí es una mierda. Porque tienen la autoridad, pues. Sí está borracho, pero que no mamen.
But for Captain Santiago Machuca, there is no question of letting the slightest infraction slip by. The risk is too great.
Pues no delicada, únicamente que la señorita pues no entiende por el estado que viene cuál es la situación. Ya se le explicó, en este caso sería el de ella, de que pudiera llegar a un percance por el estado en el que viene su acompañante.
In February 2022, 2,200 drunk drivers were arrested during this type of night operation between Mexico City and Cuernavaca. That's twice as many as in the same period in 2021. But alcohol is still wreaking havoc on the 95D. Driving on the Autopista del Sol at night is dangerous even when completely sober. As well as the treacherous bends in this road, it is also one of the most poorly lit in the country between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. As a result, over half of the accidents on the 95D occur at night, from minor fender benders to fatal collisions. In 2021, there were 228 accidents after sunset. The teams from the Red Cross were among the first to respond each time. It's 11 p.m. Rescuer Estefany Chavez doesn't have a minute to lose. She has a particularly delicate rescue operation waiting for her at the exit of Cuernavaca, in an area where cars often overtake despite the 90 km/h speed limit. This pickup truck has crashed into the storefront of a florist, less than a meter from the road. The rescuers are on scene within 20 minutes, and they find a man on the ground. He's the driver of the car. He seems to be seriously injured. The victim is conscious, but he has a head injury. The main risk is a brain hemorrhage. They need to get him help as soon as possible, so as not to worsen his condition.
¿Camilla para meterla? ¿Hay dolor aquí en cadera? ¿Me ayuda con la familia? Sí. 1, 2, 3.
Stephanie knows that the injured man must be moved with the utmost care. The slightest wrong move could cause internal bleeding in his brain. Several people come to assist the rescuers.
Hacia arriba, hacia donde están dos. 2, 3. Otro poquito, por favor. Para arriba, ¿eh? 2, 3, ya.
Among them, one man is particularly worried. Alfonso is the driver's brother.
Es que él me habló, es mi hermano, él me habló que tenía un accidente y que ya habían hablado aquí las personas a las ambulancias desde las 8:30 aproximadamente y que nunca ninguna ambulancia arribó del 911. Ahora son, déjenme verla, porque 10:20 la eficiencia del 911.
Alfonso wants to clarify how the accident happened, and he gets the story from an eyewitness.
Sí, ahí se ve la marca que se fue. Sí, ya se ve, ¿no? Sí.
He gets the first details of what happened.
Pues que un camión se le cerró y lo aventó para sobre las plantas y posteriormente que se fue así, se fue haciendo más destrozos y obviamente fue agarrando más carros. En el costado de la puerta, dice, ahí fue donde me aventó.
Fortunately, the driver of the pickup was not speeding. In the ambulance, Stephanie has placed the victim on an IV to counteract the bleeding. She needs to prevent the man from losing consciousness, so she tries to talk with him.
¿Tú ibas solito en la camioneta? Sí. ¿Quién te sacó del carro?
Ahí un carnal y unos...
¿Qué?
Que me estaba presionando la puerta.
¿Es un problema?
Sí.
Sí.
Con ayuda de una barreta. Y...
Que se atrapan con la misma estructura de los carros, la cual agravan un poco más las lesiones dado que la estructura comprime el cuerpo. Tiene varias probables fracturas de gravedad, las cuales tienen que ser atendidas en el momento. Pero dentro de lo que cabe está estable, hemodinámicamente está estable.
The man is taken to the emergency room. He needs immediate surgery on his skull and femur and will need to be in hospital for a month. It will take several years of rehabilitation for him to walk normally again. But this accident had more than one victim. A few days later, we went back to see the florist whose stall on the 95D was hit by the pickup. She's going through a tough time. Her name is Santa Trinidad, and she's one of the dozens of florists who are keeping a local tradition going on the outskirts of Cuernavaca, which is often called the City of Eternal Spring. Their stalls are dangerously close to the road with no barrier. Accidents happen all too often. But despite the risks, Santa Trinidad has been working here for nearly 40 years since she took over the family business.
Hay docenas y dos docenas. Se lo voy a dar 40 pesos.
40 pesos is only about 2 euros. Santa Trinidad's prices are unbeatably low.
300 pétalos.
Her floral creations attract passing drivers who didn't manage to buy flowers before starting their journey.
Está carísimo.
Nochebuena para un restaurante.
Sí.
Pero vale la pena.
Vale la...
apoyar al comercio local.
The florist has had more near misses than she can count. Cars pass by at 90 kilometers per hour. She's constantly on her guard.
Sí, es peligrosísimo, sí. Pues cómo no me voy a espantar, ¿verdad? Pues soy persona. Me asusto, sí, me da miedo. Sí, está abuela. Yo digo pues que Diosito que me cuide. Y pues él, yo creo que él me puso aquí.
Whether by chance or by the power of prayer, she's never been run over. Her shop, on the other hand, has not been so lucky.
He visto muchos accidentes bien feo. Y no uno ha pasado uno en este árbol, otro en este y otro más arriba.
The accident with the pickup truck has also left its mark.
Pues lo tapamos para que no lo estén viendo, mire. Pero está bien feo. Mire.
But Santa Trinidad is most worried about how this will affect her financially.
Nos afectó, que destruyó pues todos los árboles, toda la tierra. Eso fue por la planta, pues. Y pues no, pues no le cobramos al señor porque pues se veía bien pobre el señor. No, pues ha de haber sido como de perdida como unos 10,000 pesos, no fue mucho, como 10,000. Fue alguito de dinero.
10,000 Mexican pesos. That's 430 euros. It's a huge financial loss, the equivalent of a month's earning for the florist. And much of her stock is no longer saleable. She had no insurance to compensate her, so Santa Trinidad is in a precarious situation. Even so, the florist cannot leave the dangerous location at the edge of the Autopista del Sol. Her workplace is also her home. In this room, no more than 30 square meters, which she shares with her son Luis.
Voy a hacer tantito café.
As long as drivers are brave enough to stop to buy flowers, Santa Trinidad will continue to risk her safety at the edge of the most dangerous road in Mexico. On the road into Acapulco, the beach resort made famous by the jet set in the 1960s and still very popular with tourists, there is another risk for drivers. The state of Guerrero, especially its capital, is marred by the drug trade. No less than 22 cartels are engaged in an intense turf war. The Autopista del Sol is not immune from the war between the narcos. Shootouts between rival gangs are all too common. Criminal gangs sow terror on the 95D, and they don't hesitate to attack innocent road users, like in this dashcam video from 2018. We see here two drivers being forcibly pulled out of their car by armed men. They were released a few days later in return for a ransom payment of 2,000 euros. In April 2019, a carjacking caused chaos on the 95D. A family of tourists were threatened with an assault rifle and had to hand over their luxury car. But the carjackers couldn't start the car, so they ran away on foot. A few meters away, panic took hold as dozens of other drivers tried to do a U-turn. Some tourists even abandoned their cars. So, in the face of this constant danger from narcos and other criminal groups, the Guardia Nacional leads repeated operations to crack down. Commander Vladimir Mendoza leads a task force of 25 policemen.
Vamos a revisar autobuses, podemos invitarlos a que nos abran la zona de maletas o el área de maletas para que efectuemos una pequeña revisión.
This morning they are hoping to seize weapons and drugs. In 2021, 80 tons of cocaine were seized, just in the state of Guerrero by the highway police. There are seizures every day, and Commander Mendoza's men take every operation seriously. They start with the pink lorry. Even though it has already delivered its cargo, it will still be searched from top to bottom. Any nook and cranny can be a hiding place.
Igual, si vamos a detectar otro tipo de sonido, puede que traiga un fondo segundo, donde se encuentra más normalmente tipo de drogas. Incluso en la parte de abajo puede que haya una segunda refacción que tenga con producto enterrado.
That's the drug smuggler's latest trick. In December 2021, during a routine check, multiple packets of cocaine were found attached to the bottom of a vehicle with magnets. And if the truckers seem to be of particular interest to the police, it's because cartels often approach them to smuggle drugs, because it's easier to hide something inside a truck than in a little car.
Normalmente pagan un precio alto para poder llegar a meter algo. Como se dice, no hay nada.
This time there's nothing to report. During these police checks, buses are also an important target. This one's headed for Acapulco, having come from the north of the country.
Buenas tardes, soy personal de la Guardia Nacional.
Any of these passengers could be a drug mule carrying illegal narcotics. Agent Quintero is most suspicious of lone travelers.
Buenas tardes. ¿Qué tal su viaje? ¿No vio nada normal?
¿Tiene documento, hermano, por favor? ¿Me permite verificar su mochila?
There's no trace of drugs in the man's bag, but the police stay on their guard.
Gracias.
¿Ningún problema?
Hay personas que aparentemente pues no se ve que lleven ahora sí que ese tipo de sustancias.
The product can be hidden elsewhere. All the luggage will be thoroughly searched.
Ábrelo, sácalo. Ábrelo, sácalo sin miedo, lo vuelves a acomodar bien.
Any of these bags could be hiding drugs or something worse. Commander Mendoza is worried about one thing in particular.
Podría ser, o hay la posibilidad de que venga alguna persona y traiga un arma, una pistola, inclusive un fusil desarmado en 2 maletas, en 3 maletas. Por eso nos vamos directo a la maleta, ¿no?
After a painstaking search lasting 30 minutes, the men of the Guardia Nacional have drawn a blank. Today they haven't found any weapons or drugs in the dozens of buses that they have searched. But on the 95D, Commander Mendoza and his men will stay alert. In 2021, the drug war in the state of Guerrero claimed 1,650 lives. Motorists on the Autopista del Sol face all kinds of danger. You would never expect that one is lurking below the tarmac, ready to strike. One of the worst fears of all the drivers on the 95D are socavones, known as sinkholes in English. They are massive holes which often appear on the road. The violent tropical rain which Central America is known for weakens the clay soil, which is particularly prone to subsidence. And the number of cases is increasing. There were 400 of these road collapses between 2017 and 2022.
Seguido de explosiones por un cortocircuito. Así se formó un socavón en pleno centro de la Ciudad de México.
Not one week goes by without another headline in the press. One of them in particular traumatized the whole country.
Cuando todavía no salía el sol, se abrió un enorme socavón.
It was the 12th of July 2018 at 5:30 in the morning. Right in the middle of 95D, the road surface has just collapsed. A 5-meter hole has swallowed a car with 2 passengers on board. It's a dramatic sight. Multiple rescuers immediately rushed to help. Javier was among the first on scene. He has been part of the Red Cross for nearly 30 years.
Este es el socavón, así es como inició.
This was the first time in his career that he found himself face to face with a sinkhole.
Ahí ya nos percatamos, estaba todavía el orificio era muy pequeño, únicamente donde cabía el vehículo. Y sí se veía, el vehículo no estaba completamente cubierto, todavía yo creo que llevaba por la mitad más o menos estaba cubierto ya por escombro.
The accident happened on the Paso Express, a 14-kilometer bypass with 4 lanes in each direction. It was built for drivers to save time by avoiding going through Cuernavaca, which is known for its heavy traffic. The driver of the car, which was swallowed by the sinkhole, was Juan Mena Romero. His passenger was his son, Juan Mena Lopez. From within the abyss, still alive, they managed to call their family. But below ground, the oxygen was running out. The rescuers, who knew that the victims were still alive, had to act fast. One problem, Javier, shown here wearing a hat, had only got basic ropes. It was impossible for him to descend safely because the soil around the hole was too fragile.
Pues vimos la manera de ayudar a las personas que estaban ahí. Inmediatamente no teníamos el recurso para hacer el rescate. El equipo que tuviéramos no iba a ser suficiente.
After an hour, a crane finally arrived to help the rescuers. The rescue operation could begin.
Este es ya personal de la grúa que está intentando o lo están descendiendo para que enganche al vehículo y lo pueda hacer la extracción.
Using a harness and cables, the man first tried to locate the vehicle.
Nada, pura tierra, no se ve ni carro ni nada.
The car was now buried too deeply and suddenly,
Menos la placa, ¿qué dimensiones?
the rescue operation took another dramatic turn.
Bueno, aquí se va haciendo más grande.
Tranquilos, no pasa nada, tranquilos.
After this further collapse, the sinkhole has grown and is now 12 meters in size and about 8 meters deep. It already extends across 3 or 4 lanes on the highway, while the ground threatens to slip away further, so any further action could be more dangerous. It's another 8 hours, and with the help of a digger and a much bigger crane, that the car is finally brought out of the sinkhole. But for the 2 people on board, it was already much too late. Juan Mena Lopez and his father, Juan Mena Romero, were already dead, having suffocated. Since these tragic events, dozens of other cars have been swallowed up by sinkholes on the 95D. Thankfully, in each case, the passengers were rescued in time. As if there weren't already enough dangers on this road, there is also local political conflict. This toll station, 90 kilometers to the north of Acapulco, is regularly the location for violent confrontations between local students and the police force. On this video from February 2022, just as every Saturday for the past 7 years, the younger people tried to hijack the toll for their own benefit in order to protest against the consistent slide in state subsidies. But that day, they meet with a more robust response than usual. 300 police officers blocked their way and tried to disperse them using tear gas. The students are manhandled and respond by ramming this truck straight into the Pol station. Traveling at over 80 kilometers per hour, the lorry finishes by crashing into a fence 300 meters away, destroying a trader's stall on the way. Despite these images, which looked like a war zone, the lorry didn't injure anyone, and today the students are back. They are determined to take control of the Pol station, where 2,700 cars are obliged to stop every hour. Faced with the students, the Pol station employees beat a retreat. Usually there's a fixed tariff set by the state at 148 pesos, which is 7 euros. But these toll collectors take a different approach with the drivers.
Gracias. No se les cobra como tal la cuota de
O sea, prácticamente es una cooperación voluntaria.
This young man, nicknamed Tornillos, is in charge of this masked group. His campaign centers on the subsidies granted by the state to the Ayotzinapa Normal School, where these toll hijackers are students. Within the past 10 years, they have fallen from 20 to 4 million euros. For the young people, the situation is less and less secure.
Por algo que no llegue en un día, todo se vuelve un caos. Entonces, el recurso económico que se saca regularmente de estas casetas va destinado a diferentes espacios de nuestra institución. Las aulas, por ejemplo, los dormitorios, porque la escuela es una escuela, es internado. Aquí ya que el gobierno no quiere hacer caso para sustentar nuestros gastos, nosotros debemos ver la manera.
And unexpectedly, the Mexican constabulary let them go ahead.
Pero dejan que se instalan, o sea...
No, porque para no tener problema con ellos, nos recuperamos ahí. Pues de hecho nosotros, para no tener conflicto contra ellos.
Because in the past, police have been known for ruthlessness to a level that shocked the wider public. Like on the 14th of November 2015, when the police chased 2 buses full of students that were headed for the Pol station. Baton strikes and rubber bullets. The armed men do all they can to stop the young people from reaching their destination, but they fail. No one in Mexico has forgotten the images from this chase, and now the students enjoy the support of the majority of motorists for their protests against the state.
El gobierno no le da los suficientes recursos para alimento. Por lo tanto, pues desde mi punto de vista, pues está bien. Está bien porque el gobierno debería apoyar más la educación.
As a result, the toll hijack is very profitable. Each strike earns up to 24,000 euros for the students, which is up to 350,000 euros per year. Today, 80% of the normal school's funding comes from Tornillos and his comrades' actions.
Más bien sería justicia. A raíz de que no nos hagan caso, nosotros seguiremos y estaremos contraponiendo nuestra voz.
After being in full control of the toll station for 3 hours, the students take the Autopista del Sol later that day, returning 25,000 euros richer, and with the satisfaction of having dealt another symbolic blow to the government's purse. On the 95D, far from these political confrontations, there is another community who risk their lives more than any other. It is the bikers. In 2021, 430 motorcyclists were seriously injured on the Autopista del Sol. Marco is a daredevil speed freak who loves his motorbike.
Vamos a Tres Marías, vamos a Cuernavaca, vamos a visitar una de las carreteras más concurridas de México para nosotros los motociclistas.
His gear is put through its paces every time.
Es como una armadura. Sí, la verdad es que es un poquito incómodo, pues es necesario. Estos que están aquí se llaman sliders, los ocupamos para las rodillas, para tener una mayor estabilidad al curvear y tener buena la posición para pues, mover nuestro centro de gravedad un poco y entre de mejor manera la moto a la...
Embracing the curves of the road is Marco's passion. And here's his supercharged bike.
Sí, es mi bebé. Esta es una RR1000, una BMW RR1000, pues es muy potente, es una de las más potentes. Pues puede alcanzar más de 300 km/h.
This Sunday he's getting ready to ride with a dozen of his friends.
¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal? ¿Ya todo chido?
They are all ready to go.
Ya está, le vamos a dar.
Marco can't contain himself.
Me siento muy bien, está muy padre, o sea, es algo de lo que más disfruto. Sí, la sensación en la motocicleta sí es literal, es como una droga.
The convoy of bikers is off to a great start.
Vámonos, vamos a darle. Vámonos.
Full throttle in the middle of the day, in amongst the cars, Marco and his friends drive up to 250 kilometers an hour on stretches of roads where the speed limit is 110. They are just getting started because in a few hundred meters, 66 kilometers along the Autopista del Sol, a major challenge awaits them.
Estamos listos para tomar la pera. Esta es la famosísima pera.
For the Mexican bikers, it's like Mount Everest.
Vamos a ver qué tal se siente. Ya con el nerviosito que siempre se siente.
La Pera, or the pear in English, is this hairpin band 1 kilometer long, which has the reputation of being the most dangerous in the country. It is both revered and feared by bikers. The previous year, 25 of them lost their lives, usually due to excessive speed. Just like here in 2015. This young biker reaches 190 kilometers an hour on this section where the limit is 80. He ended up losing control of his supercharged bike and went over the central barrier. On the other side of the road, another biker arrives at top speed, and trying to avoid a collision, he suffers a brutal fall and dies instantly. But the deadliest accident in the past 10 years happened in August 2021.
La crónica de una tragedia que se registró en la carretera que va de la Ciudad de México a Cuernavaca.
That day, a group of 4 bikers were speeding on La Pera at 160 kilometers an hour, and they crashed head-on into a stationary lorry.
No mames.
As a result of this first collision, traffic stops in the middle of the bend. The shape of the curve hides the traffic jam from the 5 other motorcyclists who arrive at full speed. One of them has an onboard camera which keeps on recording. The bikers end up crashing into the stationary cars. Several victims were left lying on the road in agony. Some of their bodies were dismembered. The girlfriend of the biker in the blue balaclava is lying on the ground. The young man's cries of distress have marked the national psyche of Mexico. Dana, aged 21, didn't survive her injuries. The death toll from this huge pileup, 6 motorcyclists dead, as well as 9 seriously injured, and a total of 25 vehicles involved. But despite the tragedy, La Pera is still a magnet for speed freaks. And Marco, our adrenaline junkie biker, is no exception.
Vamos a una velocidad un poquito alta. Vamos a disfrutarlo un poquito.
He gets up to double the speed limit, which is completely illegal. 150 kilometers an hour.
¡Pero! Si le dimos padre, estuvo chulo, estuvo bonito.
1,000 meters of pure pleasure for these bikers. Marco is in 7th heaven, even if he is risking his life.
Sensaciones pues que solo se viven en la motocicleta.
He and his friends have survived La Pera without a scratch once again. The final destination for these petrol heads on their Sunday road trip is the town of Tres Marias. It is a paradise for Mexican bikers. Here, to the sound of roaring engines, lovers of big cars parade around while others show off their tricks. In this festive atmosphere, from local beers to mojitos, alcohol is flowing freely. And Marco
Salud.
Is not slow to raise a glass.
Sí, pues es sí. Afloja curvas.
Alcohol and fast motorbikes. It can be a fatal cocktail. After drinking 3 beers each, the convoy of daredevils hit the road again without any hesitation. This time Marco and his friends will return home safe and sound, but not all bikers on the 95D have been so lucky. Back in Cuernavaca, Jorge Luis is a miracle. His body bears scars from the wounds of a terrible accident. The worst injuries were to his right leg, which suffered 7 fractures and is partially paralyzed. It has been a few weeks and he can hardly set foot on the ground. The young man's mother, Araceli, is at his bedside 24 hours a day. As evidence of the horror of the accident, she treasures the jumpsuit that protected Jorge Luis on the day of the tragedy.
¿Tu traje que traías ese día? Y lo cortaron. Sí, no lo había visto, ¿no? Huele a sangre, a humedad.
Sí.
Aquí donde me pegué. Aquí. Híjole, sí me pegué muy fuerte. No lo había visto.
Jorge Luis will never forget this day in August 2021 when his life changed forever. Stuck in huge traffic jams, the seasoned biker decided to slalom through the cars.
Bajando ya la cima, en una curva a la derecha, le acelero y siento como la moto me escupe. Se me derrapa de atrás y me escupe, me hace el famoso high side, me avienta. Yo creo como en show, o no sé si mi mismo cuerpo se protege. Lo único que hice fue quitarme el casco, y de ahí mi mente se borró.
The impact against the back of the metal barriers, which were particularly sharp, was extremely violent. Jorge Luis was given urgent care by the emergency services. On this video, filmed by one of his friends, the biker is still conscious.
Tienes que echarle huevitos, hermano. Te vamos a esperar aquí afuera, carnal.
But in the ambulance that rushed him to the hospital, his situation deteriorated. On his arrival, he was between life and death. The young man spent 5 days in a coma. After 6 operations and being fitted with several braces, 2 months later, Jorge Luis returned to his mother in a wheelchair. There is still a long road ahead to total recovery. His daily routine includes rehabilitation sessions. With his cousin Oscar, a podiatrist by profession, Jorge Luis continues the muscle stimulation exercises, but the pain in his right leg soon kicks in.
Esto te duele. Sí. Sí, esto es lo que duele. De lunes a domingo yo creo que tengo 5 o 6. Uno es el que no tengo dolor. Pero los calambres que me dan en lo que es el empeine, rodilla o en la parte de aquí abajo, son de repente.
Jorge Luis fights his way back to health day by day, but the 30-year-old secretly harbors the dream of one day getting back on a motorcycle and riding the Autopista del Sol again. Mexico's most dangerous road, 95D, is still a deadly obsession for the bikers and motorists who dare to venture there. Between January and May 2022 alone, 115 more lives were cut short on this road.